have to have an ad hoc committee. Frankly, I'm not impressed. This stuff has been going on quite a while and it's been ignored. You have concentrated so hard being woke, you've ignored traditional ways of handling this problem. And subsequently have subjected students who behave and are in school to learn, and teachers trying to maintain decorum in the classroom to a bunch of bullies and tyrants. Yeah, some of it may come from a lack of parenting skills, but how about putting some of those parents on your ad hoc committee? Or are you as afraid of them as some of the teachers are? They're aggressive and rude children. Superintendent, school administrators, and board are just as guilty with their blind eye to this issue as the parents of the problem students. If any of you took time to watch the video I sent you, perhaps your intrusive, dehumanizing, damaging mandate for math may have something to do with these problems. Again, not necessarily always the parents' fault. With respect to masks, you have to literally ignore the current data to continue to enforce the mask mandate. It's feel good for you, maybe for the teachers union, but not for the students. Who do you serve? The unintended consequences, physically and mentally, of masks are far more severe than the COVID is for these children. By the way, is there any chance you would remove your virtue signaling mask when you speak so that we can understand you?
Yes.
Are there any?
Settle down.
Or then again, maybe we don't want to hear what you have to say.
Matthew Spalding.
Matthew Spalding at 3222 Gossip Road. I'm just going to touch on the masks real quick. Again, like I have every time, they're not working, but our cases are declining. And if you think that it's because you're keeping these masks on the children in schools, I'd have to say you haven't gone to Walmart recently or any other public function. Our cases are declining, and it's not because you're keeping these kids in masks. It doesn't work. The governor in California has lifted mask mandates, for goodness sakes, effective February 16th. You can't possibly tell me that they can't do it here. This is a great opportunity for you guys on the board to show that you can work together. Our cases are declining. Let's take this opportunity. Let's end this tonight. Your behavior issues are running rampant. It is a crisis, no matter who will tell you differently. And but we need to stick to what we can control. My opinion is in the classrooms, and giving these teachers the ability to be able to control their classrooms. I can't tell you how many times I've spoken with a teacher that is afraid for her job if she was to discipline a child or to pull on some sort of activity in any manner to get control of that classroom. Like Subin said, we've ignored traditional ways, and it's not working. These teachers need to know that we have their backs, and no matter what they do, we are going to make sure that their job is not in jeopardy. Okay. Nobody is asking for, corporal punishment or anything like that. And the same thing with masks. We're not asking you to outlaw the masks either. It needs to be optional. So these kids, the teachers should definitely not fear for their jobs. And when I talk to a teacher, she tells me she spends most of her time wrangling the classroom and trying to settle them down. It's taking away valuable learning time inside the classrooms. This is where our scores come from. The more they learn, the better scores are going to be. We need to get a hold of the discipline issue. the behavior issue and get the kids in control. If you feel like we're doing a good job and the school board is doing a good job the way that it is going right now, I encourage you to vote for the incumbents. Otherwise, if you want to change, vote for 2 Max and Tony. Yes.
We already said that. Public input is actually input to the board for.
I'm a citizen.
Oh, yeah. So it doesn't give you the right to just.
No.
I'll adjourn this meeting. I will adjourn this meeting unless you are quiet.
For the kids.
Maura Yost.
Good evening. As usual, I begin by saying, schools unite us, while fear and lies divide us. My first brush with developing interracial empathy was watching men wearing signs saying, "I am a man." That was my first brush with developing empathy, the ability to understand another person's thoughts and feelings in a situation from their point of view. Empathy is feeling with the person. Empathy doesn't just happen naturally for a lot of people. It is therefore a conscious choice we have to make. But the more we practice empathy, the more intuitive it becomes. I was reminded of that as I watched a CNN special on Beulah May Down, a woman whose son, Michael, was lynched by Klansmen in 1981. Her determined resilience resulted in criminal judgment against the men who murdered her son and a $7 million civil judgment against the Klan. She was a devotedly religious woman. On the day of his execution, one of the murderers asked if she would forgive him. She smiled as she looked directly at him and said, "I can't." Even to her son's murder, she was able to show empathy to him as a human being, despite his heinous. Who among us didn't feel horrible as we watched Derek Chauvin with his hand in his pocket, cavalierly pressing George Floyd's neck as he labored to breathe for more than 9 minutes? That is empathy. I will end with a quote from Charles Wood, a renowned New York journalist, who reminded us that one doesn't need to operate with great malice to do great harm. The absence of empathy and understanding are sufficient. Thank you.
Tony Valesta. Tony Valesca.
Hi, everyone. Tony Westelka, 825 North 13th Street here in Manitowoc. I would like to address some propaganda that has been put out by the evidence of the parents and supporters of MPSC Facebook group. Excuse me. This group has falsely claimed that my analysis of the MPSC district ranking, my overall accountability score, in the bottom 8% of Wisconsin is not accurate. I have provided step-by-step instructions on how anyone can access the data and arrive at this result. My observations and claims are factually correct, and this should concern all of us. This group then posted about some positives from the DPI report, which I agree with, and we should continue to build on, including our above-average participation in advanced courses, dual enrollment, and group-based learning for grades 9 through 12. What they conveniently left out is that during the incumbent's tenure of serving our community, District-wide proficiency in English and math has fallen significantly for students who tested. There are 4 categories for proficiency: below basic, basic, proficient, and advanced. Here are the numbers for English and the below basic proficiency level, the lowest. 2017 through 2018, 22.7%. 2018 through 2019, 26.5%. 2020 through 2021, 32%. This is a 9.3% increase of students in this category and was getting worse before COVID. Here are the percentage of students that fall into the below basic category for math. 2017 through 2018, 26.2%. 2018 through 2019, 29.9%. 2020 through 2021, 42%. This is a 15.8% increase, and again, getting worse before COVID. All the other higher proficiency levels got worse in this time period. Too many of our students are getting worse in the basics. We have a lot of areas we can improve in, and we need to clearly identify and address this problem head on. For years, this private group has had a presence on the MPSD public website and was weighing in on campaigns before I exposed this, and the district promptly took it down. Thank you, Mark, and the MPSD for this, by the way. Although I still think you should apologize and set the record straight for voters so they know the MPSD does not and cannot endorse any candidates and must remain neutral in elections. I have asked for who are the admins of this group? Will these keyboard warriors reveal their identities or hide behind this propaganda echo chamber forever? I will ask again tonight. Board Member Johnston, Board Member Sauer. Are you currently or have you ever been the admins of this group? It sure seems to me like this is your campaign page for the election. This would be highly inappropriate and might put a complaint to the WAC and to the Federal Elections Commission if it were true. Mark, did you know about this? Thank you.
Ryan Phipps, Ryan Phipps,
You're gonna allow me just a minute. I'm a very mild-mannered, respectful guy. I appreciate if we conduct our business that way. So please, when people speak, let's be respectful to them. This will also segue into my point tonight. So some of you may know me. I'm a business owner in Manitowoc. I've done lots of mentoring in our community. I've spent a lot of time with several individuals. And throughout this process of speaking, the last year or two in our community, I think a lot of your intentions have been meant to be safe. And safety is often the reason that you give us for, the shutdowns, the lockdowns, the masking. So I'd like to reference a comment that was made to me today and how it's relevant to safety. So Paula Graham made a comment about my Facebook post of saying, as Christians, we should try to help our public schools and help our community. And one of the people that commented says, as I recall, Kill the Guy was a decisive game of non-denominational recess game for all comers. So let me get this right. Safety is a very important issue. Nonpartisan is a very important issue. But because I'm a Christian, I'm attacked, and I should be part of a game called Kill the Guy? I mean, that's not right. I would never wish that upon any of you guys. In fact, I defend people. That's what I've been doing my whole life. And so I would appreciate it if we try to respect one another, even if we disagree, because that's what I'm going to continue to do. And I would appreciate your help in this. Thank you very much.
Bill Hampton,
My name is Bill Hampton, and I live at 24 Closures Drive.
an emergency position here in town. I just wanted to say thank you. You all have made some very hard personal choices that have come across that you've just been absolutely just killed for. Social media, in the community, in a lot of different ways. And you made the right choices because we haven't had a huge COVID scourge that has overwhelmed our hospital among our kids. So I appreciate that as a healthcare worker, and as a parent of 3 children of my schools. There seems to be some misunderstanding about why we were masked. If you'll permit, I just want to answer 4 questions that are asked me a lot of the time. Why do I need to wear a mask? It may not be for you. It's for the medically vulnerable people that are going to come downstream for you and become infected. I need you to wear a mask for the premature baby that was just born as a little brother to a 2nd grade student. Because if that 2nd grade student brings home COVID, the premature baby's going to be in a lot of trouble. I need you to wear a mask to protect your 5th grade teacher who has breast cancer. He does not chemo. I need you to wear a mask for your 9th grade teacher whose husband finally got a kidney transplant. And he's immunocompromised, and no amount of vaccines are going to make him any less immunocompromised. Trying to keep him safe. I need you to wear a mask because that girl that sits across from you in the homeroom, her grandmother lives with them. Because there are no nursing home openings, there are no assisted living openings. She has emphysema and rheumatoid arthritis. She's immunocompromised. Why should I get vaccinated and wear a mask if it doesn't protect 100%? It's true, masks and vaccination do not protect 100%, but here's some other things that don't. Seatbelts and airbags will not protect you 100% if you're in a car crash. You can still be killed, you can still be seriously injured, but I still encourage you to wear your seatbelt. Smoke detectors will not protect you 100% in your home burning down. But you're much safer and you're much better off having a working smoke detector in your home. And helmets may not be 100% of protecting you from serious injury, but we as healthcare providers, as firemen, as policemen, advise you to please wear a helmet. Masks and social distancing and vaccines are not 100% of protecting COVID. The statistic is they're actually 99% effective. But please, we want you to do these things to keep you and other people safe. 3rd question, why does it have to be a mask? Because this is a respiratory pandemic. This is a form of hygiene. Good hygiene is covering a cough or a sneeze. Good hygiene is washing your hands if you use the bathroom. Good hygiene is using a tissue, a Kleenex, when you blow your nose instead of just wiping your hand in your pants. This is what we need at this point in time to keep the pandemic under control. Please. For those of you that are sitting up there not wearing masks, will be defying school board policy. This is a political statement. It's just bad. In a kindergarten class, if a child would cover their cough or sneeze, they use to wash their hands if they're using the bathroom, they'd be called on. A lot of people said, but other people's health problems aren't my problem. Technically, that's true. But we decided as a society we're going to make some allowances. There's handicap parking for people with mobility issues. There's a lift that helps get people in and out of the swimming pool who couldn't otherwise use the pool. We have cochlear implants for deaf people. We have seeing eye dogs for blind people. We have all these things to help those among us who are a little bit more disadvantaged, health challenged. This is akin to that. The difference is with those people, you can see their disability. You can see their handicap. For people that are medically vulnerable or immunocompromised, you cannot see them. They're invisible. Why do you need to wear a mask? To protect other medically vulnerable people. Why should you get vaccinated and wear a mask? Because it helps. It helps much more in the same way that seatbelts and smoke detectors and helmets. Why does it have to be a mask? Because it's a respiratory pandemic. This is what works. We will not be here forever, but we need it now, please. And other people's health problems may not seem like your problem. This is unbelievably contagious. And 3 people today that are being admitted to the ICU, 2 of them are likely going to die. And yes, all 3 have COVID.
Michael Mealy,
No, sir. You gotta stay at stage. Not come up here, sir. You gotta stay at stage. You gotta stay at stage, sir. You want me to say something else? You're not gonna speak up here. You have to stay.
adjourn this meeting.
I'll move to adjourn.
We're moving to adjourn. I need a first and a second, please.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second, Carrie?
I second.
This is safety. Yeah.
This is a lawful service. This meeting, I advise you. Someone US 360 BBP. Advise consent of medical device. You refer to counsel. And make a decision to continue your class. This is a service resulting from. I don't.
Matthew Phipps?
My name is Matthew Phipps. I live at 2245 Wildwood Lane. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. It's time to take responsibility for our children acting out. Bad behavior in our schools is a crisis. We can all agree on that. But it's all of our faults. I'm here right now, looking at all of you in the eyes to help our community. I love and care about every child trying to make it in this world today. The board needs to own the decisions that you have made for the last 2 years. I'm done hearing excuses why our children are having problems. I want solutions. The community needs them. Our district scores are not good, and our children are getting in more fights than ever. They are not succeeding. What is our community going to look like in 2 years from now if we continue down this path? How bad are we going to let it get? Our children need everybody working together. Some people are trying to divide us, to make this political. This is where I was born and raised. I want our children to learn and grow without fear, because fear turns into bullying. Bullying turns into separation of our children. Separation turns into group identity. That's not good. That's tribalism. We all must respect everyone's individual choices and not be bullied by fear. I take responsibility for my actions. It's time our school board does the same. Thank you.
Public input is closed. We will now move on to the committee reports. Personnel, Carrie?
Yeah, okay. Give me a sec.
Yep, we met on January 24th. There were three members of the committee were there, Meredith, Stacy, and myself, and we had 4 topics. One was the middle school dual licensure.
Excuse me,
What?
can't understand you. Please speak.
Well, honestly, this is a meeting for the school board. This is not a public meeting, okay? This isn't a meeting. You don't get to speak, okay?
I will adjourn this meeting. I will adjourn this meeting. Do you have a second?
Ma'am, you're out of order, okay?
We'll take a recess for 5 minutes.
Because there's a policy here. Ma'am.
Go.
Take 5 minutes.
All right.
We're going to take 5 minutes recess.
That I did. Did they watch the video? I was just a program. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to come back from this recess and we are going to work through this board agenda. We have board business to take care of tonight. I appreciate the fact that everybody wants to hear. There's a reason why we're in the auditorium, right? It gives us some space. It's not ideal. I understand it's not perfect to hear, but that is why we're in the auditorium and not in the boardroom, because there is not enough space. Yeah, absolutely. What I would say is, I absolutely need the people in the audience to understand that if you're going to make comments and disrupt the Board of Education meeting, this board will choose to go into a separate room and do it virtually. You have to watch it. This is a meeting of the Board of Education that's held in public. From this point on, it's a Board of Education meeting. It's not a public meeting. It's a meeting of the Board of Education that's held in public. We want to continue to hold that in public. And so I would just ask that you hold your comments and communications to the board or directed in comments to yourself. If you have individual things that you'd like to share, there's public input or communications via email or other ways to address the board members or other people. Appreciate your time.
Just speak in the mic like you just did.
This is what I would tell you when I just get done saying, hold your comments to yourself. That would mean don't talk.
Excuse me.
Could the personnel committee, Carrie, could you please give us a report, or have you given us the report?
Give me the microphone. You know, I work most of my life in a large lecture hall without a microphone, and everybody was fully capable of hearing every word I said. So it's not my voice, it may be you that can't.
Now you're speaking up, we can hear you now.
So we met on January the 24th. We took up the issue of the dual licensure for middle school core teachers. There was discussion, as there always is, and we will advance a motion to be acted on later in the meeting. The school calendar. The school calendar has now become kind of controversial. What we were presented with was two calendars: the traditional calendar, you know, that we approve, you know, pretty regularly, without very much discussion or controversy every year. But because we have just gone through 2 years of a lot of stress to both students and teachers and staff of all kinds, there's a proposal that was advanced that we have more days off to reduce the regime, to reduce the stress, to try to give teachers a breather, try to give kids, you know, some time off the book. And we recommended that surveys be sent to the staff, teachers, and the parents. And when the results of those surveys come back, they will be given serious consideration, and that will have an impact, I'm sure, on our discussions and what we adopt in terms of the annual calendar for next year. We also took up the issue of staff safety. There've been some, well, I would guess, sort of shocking things that have happened, at least in 2 cases. It was pretty clear that the administration is aware of the need for safety. It's a big system. Places like Lincoln High School are big buildings. You know, it cannot be absolutely, you know, just guaranteed that everybody's security is going to be taken care of. But the fact is that there are policies and mechanisms in place that may have to be ramped up a bit, but that have maintained pretty decent safety up until fairly recently. The paraprofessional salary schedule we talked about for 2 reasons. Number one is that there's a lot of paraprofessional people that are well, I mean, it's difficult to get enough paraprofessional people to work as teaching aides, partly because the job market is very competitive. So Joyce and the superintendent reassured us that they're absolutely examining this to see what will enable us to be competitive in terms of a tight job market. But there was also the issue of being fair to the employers. I mean, some of the wages are fairly low. That may not be something that we can remedy at this point, but it certainly is a goal. Fairness is a goal here in order to compensate these people at a respectable level. But you know, as of course, there's no new money for next year. It's not our fault. But anyway, it is an issue that's under consideration. Are there any questions?
Colin?
So as for the discussion related to the dual licensure, did you discuss a grandfather aspects to the plan? I mean, would those people be grandfathered in that are currently not of dual licensure? And
No, I can tell you right now, we did not discuss that.
okay,
And you can raise that issue when this comes up for a vote, later under new business.
sure. I wanted to wrap my head around the foundation before I voted. And then the next one that I had was, the staff safety discussion that took place here. It said that the research points to a variety of factors primarily related to COVID for the increase in staff injuries resulting from interactions with students. What was the research that you guys were discussing?
Well, I can't cite articles and that
Generality.
in medical journals, but it's fairly common knowledge if you listen to the news or read newspapers or something, that mental health among students is really suffering. It's suffering from a number of things. The insecurity of being in the midst of a pandemic, are we going to be virtual or are we going to be in class? Are we, et cetera, et cetera. It's just very, very stressful for the whole society, but especially distressful for adolescents. So there is an uptick in behavioral problems, in people acting out aggressions that we haven't had to deal with before.
I agree.
So, adjustments are trying to be made. And that's sort of where we ended it. May not in fact be a subject that is not an ongoing discussion that we have. But for now, we dealt with it as much as we could in the meeting, the three of us, and didn't come up with any recommendations at this point. But, it is a concern.
And may I continue?
Sure.
The other thing that I had that I wanted to bring up is the verbal intervention training that took place. So that took place, and there was some training. Is there an action plan to go beyond that training to utilize anything other than just relying on somebody to use that training?
Yeah, it's on the agenda tonight to review.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to the curriculum committee report. Meredith Sauer.
You said we need questions
Oh,
on the
sorry.
minutes from the.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I need a first and second motion to accept those.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The curriculum committee met the same day. We've got a couple of things on our agenda. The first thing was to talk about academic and career planning and what that looks like in the high school level. And so we kind of walked through the different aspects that are integrated 6 through 8 and then 9 through 12. And then we also discussed, and that list is in your minutes. We then discussed some secondary level math updates, specifically looking at the compacted math class and criteria to enter into that compacted math class for 4 years. Lori Williams walked through that with us. We had a little bit of feedback, and they will bring that back once more in March to with some of those revisions. And then we were done.
Okay, so I'll need a first and a second motion.
I move we accept the report from curriculum.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Report of the superintendent.
Okay, so that'll be answered. Okay. Vouchers is next.
Yeah, it's just.
Okay, of the payment of vouchers, I was in Oracle.
Oh, man.
And, you know, for the month of January, 2022, looking for approval for the accounts payable expenditures for $4,564,240 and $8,060 for a grand total of $6,678,275.67. I'm just looking for approval for that and what they take any questions regarding that.
Does anyone have any questions? Then I'll need a first and a second to approve the payment of the vouchers.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed? And it passes. Thank you.
Can we go on to the financials, for the month of January as well? During the month of January, we receivable tax payments, so that is one government, increase that we for typical revenue that we see during the month of January. So, we set money aside for that service at that time, and so with our general stuff for the revenue. That is no one, and our expenditures and revenues are very similar from year to year, from last year to the current years, for now. That is good thing to see that we're just spending the same percentage of it as company has year. Just one thing to know with fund 15, at this point we were still coming back from and supply models, and so there's, you know, added expenditures and added revenue for the city, because we're just feeding more children, and so that previous continue for the school year, so that's just the difference as we see the impact of 2 fiscal years when the expenditures are growing with the increased service.
Anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll go on and have just the memorandum of all January enrollment. You can see our accounts from September to January is on 14 students. But we are up throughout compared to the previous year. It did include some information just that when they come to students, they take account, but then they wait for preschool special education and for our birthdays. So we're curious to see how they will be back, depending on the goals for funding. And then just kind of referencing a report we had on, you know, the spaces we had for special education last year. We have our analysis for all students on just whether they're generalized. And, you know, there's just a dollar that we say again for open enrollment and out. So, what's nice to see here is that open enrollment again is up 15 students from last year. So we're bringing in a little more revenue there compared to last year, and then we're there's 56 students less at this time. So it's nice to see that students are coming back to the district, and we have to get over the school. So, if you take any questions, or that's all I have.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Angela. Then we will move on to the personnel report. Joyce.
All right, we should, a personnel report over the sport club. Is it all ready? This is the one report. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Joyce.
Do we need a motion?
We will require a first and second motion to accept the personnel committee or personnel report.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mark, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Wanted to share, again, some, information in regards to our health update. In the workbook, you will see a few slides. I can share that with, the audience. as we move forward. Just want to give you some general information on what we're looking like. So the first information I'm sharing you is our county's burden rate. So that's an average that we see. It has to do with the number of positive cases we're seeing. The good news that we're seeing here is obviously there's a decline. When you look at the decline from where we were a couple of weeks ago, we are absolutely heading in the right direction. So that's absolutely positive. We see that same pieces when we look at our teachers and their absences. So again, this is what I would tell you is unfilled vacancies. So we're not quite celebrating yet, but an unfilled vacancy means that we have somebody out and we don't have somebody to fill it because everybody's used. But if you compare where we are the last 3 weeks compared to the previous 3 weeks, it's not even close. So we are also trending absolutely in that right direction. And then the last piece is just information to kind of give the board an understanding of what does, how many staff members are out on a daily average and what does it look like for the week. And so you can see that although we definitely had a little dip in the week of 121 was only 2 days. So that's why it's significant. This week right here only had 2 days in it. That's why it's different. Anomaly there. Same thing with this week before Christmas, only had 2 days. So when you're going from 460 staff absence a week to 354, 343, that's absolutely positive, but we're still seeing on average of 70 employees a day absent. So the biggest concern that we have obviously moving forward is making sure that we can continue to provide a face-to-face instruction. And so again, I just wanted to make sure that I shared the board this information. I believe the district's ad hoc protocol team meeting is Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. Does that sound right? Colin, but I thought I got something in my board book.
I haven't seen it
It's
yet.
the student behavior.
Oh, student behavior. Okay. The internal district, we have a district team that's going to meet on Wednesday, which I guess would be tomorrow. That group, again, will have some conversations. I think we're trending in the right direction to look at making a recommendation in the future to potentially change our policies and practices. But again, I just want to make sure that we have feedback that we've gotten from our local health professionals. Alan, question?
The majority of the absences, are those due to illness or other circumstances?
You talk about staff absences.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we're in Wisconsin in February, so people are going to be sick and people have FMLA and I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why people are absent. With that, COVID causes also some unique opportunities, right? It's not necessarily just the people who are out are employees. It might be their spouses, it might be their children. We've had cases where daycares had to close and they didn't have anybody to watch their kids, and so they had to be out. So there's a number of different reasons. You know, if we looked in our absence management, we do have places where it says if it's COVID related, but this chart is just showing total. At this point, to me, it doesn't matter so much if you're gone and I don't have a sub for you, if it's COVID or if you're got a toothache, I guess. I just need somebody to teach your class. And I would also say that it's just so you know, there are many educational employee positions that we do not get substitutes for. We just don't get subs for. So this isn't 100% accurate when I say this unfilled vacancies. That's why I wanted to share with you the number of vacancies because, for example, our counselors, our principals, the secretaries in the front office, there are OT, PT, there are people who, when they're absent, we likely aren't getting a substitute for them. And they're not counted on that list of unfilled substitutes, if that makes sense. Unfilled substitutes is only likely the classroom instructor and people who are working in front of kids who we have to have somebody in that list. And so when it's unfilled, that means that somebody internally is covering for them during a prep or they're not doing their job and doing somebody else's. I don't mean it in a negative way, that's just how all hands on that kind of piece. So this is a little bit better representation of how many people are actually gone. And So we're seeing, very similar to what we saw back in October, November, which is absolutely positive. We're looking like, we are heading in the right direction, absolutely. Any other questions or comments you have for that piece?
I don't have a question, but I would like to make a motion. I would like to make a motion that we eliminate the mask mandate effective immediately to the numbers.
Second.
Let's have a discussion.
Yeah, I don't know what we decided last spring in terms of burden as a criteria for considering abandoning the mask mandate. Does anybody recall that?
Well, we had three likely indicators. So we were looking at our own internal health, we were looking at the burden rate, we were looking at hospitalization within our county. Those were the three areas that we were looking at. When we were looking at the highest time we've had historically, you can see prior to that. Again, I anticipate that number 1790 is going to drop. It comes on Wednesday. And again, 1375 is, we are in, when I don't tend to know all of the language, right? But we are significantly high. There are numbers that's high, significantly high, just we're significantly high. We did hear from physician who talked about that. We have a health protocols which says they're working in healthcare and saying what that looks like. But again, I'm saying we are trending in the right direction. We definitely have a meeting tomorrow, and right now, we would look at what that says and talk to our healthcare professionals and make a decision very close to what that looks like. If the board is confident in, there's a motion, but if, again, I'll let the board work through that. So that was the conversation.
So we're still significantly high in Manitowoc County?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Yes.
Okay. I mean, we're New Jersey is yet, right?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, they lifted the mask mandate in New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean,
but the downward trend is moving west. So I assume that, where the states are that are lifting mask mandates, they probably have a lower burden rate than we do.
yeah, I guess I can't say I'm paying attention to that. I guess I would just say the piece that I would tell you from the district administrative standpoint is that if the board agrees to change or votes to do that, there are some protocols that we need to keep in place that are significant. So for example, right now, the recommendation would be that you're out for 5 days if you have COVID and you come back and wear a mask. Okay. Well, right now we don't have to write it. We don't have any written protocols in that realm because everybody's wearing a mask. So if the mask mandate's removed, I would just ask, we do need a little time to change our protocols so our parents understand that if your positive COVID child is coming to school, they could stay home for the duration, or if they're coming back after 5 days, we'd ask them to wear a mask because they're contagious. That's the piece of that they're doing that. Now, because we're requiring masks, we don't have that written protocol, so there is some logistics to that, but that's for the board to, there's a motion, so I'll pause and let them kind of work.
So we're getting close. We may just be a couple of weeks away, a month away, 2 months away. I don't know. But we're on the downside of this now. So, and we just had a doctor here tonight talking to us, advising us to keep the mask mandate in place. So I'm going to listen to medical people.
Okay. Can I speak to my motion?
You need to.
The reason that I'm making the motion, we're on the downtick. We're seeing states lifting their mandates. We're seeing other districts lifting their mandates, and all that is currently happening. We just saw in the personnel report a discussion about the COVID, things that have happened as a result of COVID. If one of those stressors is the masking on the children, there's body language. Over 50% of your body is body language. So that would include smile, or sorry, over 50% of your communication is body language. That would include smiling. I do believe that the ability to have a smile in your life is going to make you less combative, less, happier, all around, just better moods. The kids do need this. They've been masked for the majority of the year. We're trying to think outside the box and how to handle the behavioral issue. I would think that this would be a good opportunity to move down this path. We're seeing the numbers come down. Other communities are doing the exact same thing. And we need some solutions in other areas too, not just in COVID. So that's why I'm making the recommendation and the motion that I have done.
Lisa, I'd like to speak. I agree with most of what Colin says. I think a couple things. Number one, immediate leaves us in a really bad place. I had to vote against the motion on that alone. But the other thing is the timing. We've come this far. Timing is a really important factor in all of this. And I for one, would feel a lot more ready to vote on this motion in the affirmative if I really did see the trends were going down precipitously. So I won't vote for the motion, but I think at some point, of course, I think everything Colin's saying is something I would fully agree with.
I agree too. We're very close now. So
I'd like to make an amendment to my motion. End of the week, is that acceptable? To make at the end of the week.
I don't think you can do that.
Fine, I'll withdraw my motion and resubmit.
Can you do that? Is that parliamentary?
Make an amendment to his motion.
I should be able to make an amendment to my motion, but
Yeah.
if that's not allowed, then I'll just withdraw and make a new one.
Laurie,
Yeah, it's like you just have to have a friendly, I'm not sure
Yeah.
who's second.
Yeah, it's a friendly motion, or a friendly amendment. So the amendment that I'm willing to put out there is the end of the week. We would, it would be on Monday, we would start back up with no masks.
Friendly amendment, I accept that. The second.
Thank you.
okay, so right now we have a first and a second to remove the mask mandate on Monday. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Do we need a discussion or have we?
I mean, I know where I'm at. I listen to the doctors and we have
Yeah.
one literally who talks about standing there with dying people at Holy Family Hospital. So.
Okay,
Folks like they're dead.
so all those in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No.
Opposed.
Okay, that does not carry.
So I think, just want to make sure I'm in the right spot and not overstepping my bounds, but the board still continues to provide the administration some opportunities to look at our data and make potential changes to our health protocols. Definitely don't want to make something that the board's not going to approve. So I'll definitely keep you in the loop if there are recommendations based on our meeting tomorrow. And I anticipate the health protocol ad hoc advisory committee will meet prior to the next board meeting. We definitely will have a recommendation, again, for the board. Next piece, we're talking a little bit about some cultures and Just wanted to share some data points again with the board. Earlier this year, I shared some information, before I get to there, I shared some information regarding the first semester, out of school and in-school suspensions. We talked a little bit about some strategies, and so the first strategy was to provide some additional support and training for all of our staff. So in January, our staff went through a 2-hour online training and 4-hour in-person training. We provided that opportunity for all of our employees, teachers, custodians, paraprofessionals, secretaries, and administrators, in addition to our substitute staff who wanted to do so. We got some feedback from those folks. I have a survey that they completed and had 473 responses from that survey. Of that survey, example of topics covered were relevant to my profession, strongly agree, 95.4%. This training experience will be useful in my work, 93.7%. The training was put on by the staff in their building, so we had about 30 people who went above and beyond to get the verbal intervention training. And so they were used to the people who were providing the training. Our buildings were reduced to like 25 or less. So in some buildings, there were 2 or 3 trainers. In some buildings, they were split up like Lincoln in 6 trainers. And those folks went above and beyond, absolutely doing a great job of working through the materials and giving our staff opportunity to walk through strategies. The feedback that we heard from the training in our comments were that staff were looking for more information. What else can we do? What more things can I get? They were very complimentary of their trainers, of the opportunity to be trained, but they also wanted to continue to have more strategies. So I guess I just wanted to share that information with you just in regard to what we're hearing. So as we look at next steps, I just want to tell you that we've had 2 conversations with a company it's called Safe Schools, and they provide overall general information specifically about strategies to teach behaviors within our schools. They're similar, but a little bit different. Maybe you've heard of the old PBIS model, Positive Behavior Intervention Strategies. Some of our buildings have gone through the training with that. This is a little bit different strategy in that supports the teaching of positive behaviors. We know that those are going on throughout our district. Our principals, our teachers, our support staff are all doing a great job of working with our children every single day. I will continue to tell you as I prepare for the data here that the kids that come to the Manitowoc Public School District are our children. It is their right to attend our schools, and it's our job to do everything we can to meet them where they're at and support them. And we do see a significant increase in our mental health needs. We do see absences that are greater than what we've seen before. And that also is going to factor in as we look at how our students are doing. So I have 2 general overviews that I think will provide you really good information, and potentially provide you with potential questions that you might want to answer. So I'll start. Oh, I'm sure that's not the one. Apologize. We'll open it up in the Google Slides. I have 2 slides. I think hopefully you can take a peek at that. For those in the audience, just bear with me 1 second as I pull up this on the sheet here. So we tried to put together similar information from the previous years, and as I make this a little larger for the audience, here's the facts. We continue to see a high number of students who are in significant needs. First semester total of out of school suspensions, that's what OSS is, equals 515 days and 179 kids. And that's disappointing because I know for a fact that our students aren't learning when they are in out of school suspension. I want to communicate again that I think that there is this sometimes an undercurrent that people believe that our administrators are not tough on crime. What I'm telling you is that, we have twice as many out-of-school suspensions for behaviors that are happening in our schools than we've had previously. That is not positive. That is absolutely negative. That is not something that we are hoping to continue, and we want to make sure that we're meeting the students where they're at, providing some resources. But this is the data we have to share. It's interesting when you look at the demographics of where we are. We have some things that we have to look at. And so this data point shows the days suspended, and then based on enrollment, because we have different areas, how many days they should have been suspended if all was equal, right? So if we look at some areas here, we can see that these are days suspended, that our Black students were suspended 71 days based on their population within our realm. It would be 13 days. That's something, again, we have identified ourselves, our district, as that. I can't say that the behaviors weren't deserving, but I'm saying that that's something that is not trending in the area. Obviously, that's glaring right off the bat. The others seem to be closer to where they are. This would tell me that our Asian students identified as Asian, have been suspended 7 days, and if we're looking at what it would be district-wide, it would be 25 if we were on normal. That makes sense. Like if it was exactly equal based on the number of students and percentiles, that's what that would happen. When we look at the out-of-school suspension again, we look at where those days, these are the students suspended. So this one here talks about the number of days. This talks about the actual students. And you can see where the students are. This talks about gender, and we see in this model, probably not surprising, that we have almost 3 times as many gentlemen that are suspended than females, boys than girls. 195 days as opposed to 71. This is the actual student, so 83 to 29. This would be by special education IDA status, so students with an IEP and students without an IEP. So the example would be that there are about 16 or 17% of our students in the district who have an IEP. If that was the case, they would have had 44 suspensions. They had 117. Obviously, that doesn't mean that the behaviors that they had didn't warrant it. It just means that we're skewed here in this area. This is the actual number of students. I think when you're going to look at a couple of pieces, and I'll jump back, I'm going to jump ahead and then jump back. This chart absolutely surprised me when we look at very specific data about where the kids are when they're suspended. And so this data will tell me that we have some significant needs in our grade 6. When you look at the overall data, I would share with the general public that there are more students who are struggling in grade 6 than in Lincoln High School combined. So when you hear things like, this school or that school, that's not true, right? And here's what we're looking at. If you think about a 6th grader's current status, they actually did not have a full normal school year until back in 4th grade, right? 3rd grade year was their last full normal year of school. 4th grade year, they would have been in elementary school, and then it would have been shut down in March with COVID. The last year would have been 5th grade, where they were in a blended model, half and half, and then after Christmas or after about this time they came in. So their first real year back in school is this year, and we're seeing that they have some significant needs. It's not unreasonable to think that our middle school kids have some poor judgment at time and have behavior issues, but to this extent, definitely not. Some of the things that we've done prior to this, we added our deans of students or our student learning liaisons. So we try to support that. We added counselor services. We have mental health in our buildings. We've added positions in order to try to help support that. But this data tells us we need to do some more things to help support our, in this case, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade kids. It would also tell you that the data points, when a couple things that may raise your eyebrows would be what's happening in kindergarten, 2nd, and 3rd grade. And so what we're seeing in, I think I've gave you this report before, our 4K enrollment to 5K this year grew by about 90 students. And what happened was many of those 90 students did not attend school at all. So they had no 4K experience, and their only experience was 5K. And for a kindergartner to be asked not to come back, it's because they are physically hurting somebody. And again, I think we have to look internally at what else we can do there, but those are some things that are real. If we just jump back here and look at the days suspended out of school by incident type, it's pretty similar to what we've seen in the previous. And these are days suspended. So you have to think about, based on the incident, it's not 42 days for fighting, or 42 fights, it's 42 days. It could be 2 kids, 3 days each, that's 6 days. That would be an example I would use. And again, overall, what I would tell you is that I'm confident our building principals and our teachers and staff are doing an outstanding job of trying to do everything we can to mitigate out-of-school suspensions. That is not our interest at all, because student learning does not happen, and that consequence does not solve the problem. Right? Those kids are coming back, and we have to help support them. But those are where the data points, those are where the data points are. So before I jump onto in-school suspensions, I guess I would pause there and see if there's questions that board members have about the data and want more information.
Colin?
Thank you. So yeah, I was surprised to see the 6, 7, 8, and then the significant drop at 11, 12 to almost none. And then even more so to see kindergarten. I have a young, kid right around that age. And I'm wondering to myself, what could constitute a kid being asked to leave school for that, hearing that it was endangering another child. I get it. And it's unfortunate that at that age that's occurring. But the reason that I wanted to speak was, I see on here for the days suspended out of school by incident type, a couple that, popped out at me: drug related, sexual assault, weapon, not firearm, assault. These are all criminal. Does the district ever pursue charges for activities like this?
And so what I would say is the district never pursues charges, but the police liaison officers may. So we have police liaison officer at the middle schools and at the high school, and they work with the elementary schools that they're assigned to, like north side, south side, for example. So yes, they may assign a student with a public violation, whether that's a ticket or court date. As an administrative group, we don't have that authority ever. And I think that it depends on the situation, right? If you're talking about a fourth grader, the police aren't going to be looking at it, putting a 10-year-old and saying, okay, this is not going to happen. But that doesn't mean that the behavior is an extreme, right? We have, again, 3 liaison officers. They work with us in the buildings, and they serve our elementary schools as necessary as well.
So, I guess a couple of weeks ago, I looked into the liaison issue, and you told me that there was only 2 liaison. Have we brought on a third now?
No, I'm sorry if I mistakenly told you that. We have 1 at each middle school and 1 at Lincoln High School. So for as long as I have been here, and for, I don't know how, it's been a long time.
Yeah, 'cause I looked it up on the website, and remember we had that discussion, and there was the one at the junior high and the one at Lincoln. They shared.
Yeah,
Did something change?
I guess I don't recall the conversation. We've had 3 liaison officers for as long as I've been here, and I, would look to the director historian at Tulane Medicine and say,
But as long as I've been here.
okay, so 20 years.
Okay.
mean,
I guess I'll look into it further then.
yeah, we didn't add any, it's just that's been what we've had.
So is the protocol ever to refer these incidences to the liaison, or is it just if the liaison decides to pick it up, they pick it up, if not, and go from there?
I think it depends on the situation, but in many cases, the liaison is working hand in hand. That's what their purpose is with the administration on, something that would be of potential criminal behavior. So not all suspensions, right, are criminal behavior. We're talking about children. But yes, the police, for example, if you're fighting at, first and second grade in the playground is likely different than at Lincoln High School. You're probably going to take it for disorderly conduct or something to that extent, almost everything. So, our leaders have to be able to have some kind of discretion in that. And our liaison officers will also talk about, their role in trying to support. It might be, I need to come down and have a conversation to use down, but I need to come to an elementary school and have a conversation with a young man or young woman specifically to let them know about their behaviors and what's happening. But that's not to give them a ticket. From a referral standpoint, our building leaders, our school counselors, our principals, also have a very open conversation relationship with our county services that are provided. And that is something that happens on a regular basis.
Are there any other questions? Okay, we'll move on. District activity update.
Yes, so we 2 or 3 into the second semester, not this coming Monday, but the following Monday, we have a day off. We'll be giving the board a report. I think it's first going to go to the personnel report in regards to the update we've got from our community and staff on our survey data. I think the numbers are 500 from the staff and almost 1,000 from our community, so that'll be good information to use. Had some awesome opportunities at Lincoln High School, some musical opportunities this week. So if you check on the website, you can attend some opportunities there. Shout out to our dance team. They're going to state. They have to go through a regional and sectional, and then they are heading to state. So that's always exciting when we have some kids who are doing some awesome things. And I know that Pam and our team that are testing students are preparing for that process. So the student testing window will open within the next few weeks, and our students will be taking part in our state assessments. So those are things that just continue to go on. I would also say that we are still looking like we're moving forward with the sale of the property at McKinley Academy. We've moved the closing date to the end of this month based on a few legal things that they're working through, but that would be exciting if we bring that back to the board for the approval of that sale towards the end of the month. So some positive things that is.
I have a question, Superintendent. On your written report.
The superintendent director's report.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, superintendent's report. Yep. The second point, or the second piece of information here is student academic comparison data. And you're intending to provide information to us to get an accurate understanding of where our students really are in terms of growth and learning, etc. Okay. In light of that, it seems to me that the information or misinformation that's going around that claims that the Manitowoc Public Schools, in terms of academic achievement, are at the 8% at the bottom. Is there any validity to that at all?
Yeah, thank you. So the first thing I would tell you is that the DPI does not rank schools. The purpose of the report card is not to rank schools and have one school versus the other school. I think if you wanted to rank schools, you would rank them by how much that they spend per pupil and what the number of free and reduced population would have, and you would have all the schools who are at the 97 report card at the time, right? So it's fair to say that there's a reason why the DPI does not rank schools using the report card, because it's not a consistent measure. We also know that the DPI has changed the evaluation model and the expectations from year to year, which means that it's difficult to compare 2017 to 2019 because what they're using in order to ascertain the data or the same individual score is not the same. I would also say that it is absolutely critical for this board and for us to have conversations about what are we going to hang our hat on. Because if we believe that the ACT test and this spring and the WKC test or the Wisconsin assessment test that our students are taking is absolutely the key indicators that is showing the success or lack thereof, I would say that there are lots of other factors. Example I would give you is that right now, about 50% of our kids at Lincoln High School do not attend four-year colleges. And we see that with at least 70 of those students attending the youth apprenticeships or other programs, right? So the question that I would have in that round would be, if I know that I'm not, how serious is it going to be on a Tuesday in March for me to take the assessment? It's fair to say that our scores need to improve. That is no doubt. We've got to work hard on trying to improve that. But the report card scores are not put out, and it says on the DPI page that we have, right? Be cautious about comparing this year's data to previous year's data. It says right on there that's not our language. And it also says you're not to compare school distances for use of that. Now, again, there are pieces in there that are absolutely valuable for us to look at how we're doing and what we need to improve on. But there is no state ranking, right? We've seen that data before. That is not anything that the DPI creates.
So that is misleading, right?
There is an individual who obviously used their interpretation of the data to create that data. That's not coming from the district, any other district, or the DPI.
Okay, anything else, Mark?
No, I guess I'm sorry if I skipped that superintendent director's report. Sorry for that. Is there any other questions that board members have for directors or superintendent? Okay. New business.
Okay, so we're moving on to new business items brought forward from the personnel committee meeting, the middle school dual licenses.
Okay,
Gary?
we want some action taken on this. The perspective that the committee took is that we really do need to reward and compensate the teachers who are cooperating with this effort. In other words, teachers who are either taking the exams or studying to take exams in order to qualify to teach more than one discipline, more than one subject in the middle schools. And a great number have stepped up and said, we want to do this. So we don't have an instrument that we've approved of at this point that will compensate them and reward them for that effort. Therefore, we have a motion to approve the district providing the applicable financial resources to those middle school core teachers who voluntarily chose or choose to obtain a second license. That's the motion. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
We don't need any motions because it moved forward from committee.
Oh, okay.
So it would just be comment and then if no
Okay.
conversation, vote.
I don't know, did I read that right? To approve the.
Yes, we want to pay people for.
Yeah, we want to pay people, provide applicable financial resources, and we all received a sheet on that. And we know what that will be. It'll pay for the testing or the studying, et cetera, et cetera. And we'll compensate these teachers at a one-time only $2,000 stipend.
But this is not a mandatory.
It's not a mandatory, it's a voluntary, certainly the people that have undertaken it have taken it voluntarily. There's been no sort of torture chamber to get the other ones to do it, so.
Stacy.
Yeah, I didn't vote, I voted against this in committee, and I just want to be clear about why. I think when it first came to the board, there was concern about it being not something that was optional. And it really didn't change much when it came back to committee. It was just written out that it was going to be something that was not mandatory. And we just don't have in the climate that we have right now with a teacher shortage, and some of these teachers are beyond 10 years, and to have them have to do this, I know it's voluntary, but they've also been told that there may not be a position for them if they can't fill that. So I wanted some protection for those teachers, and I still don't think it's there. And so I'm fully in favor of compensating teachers that want to do this. That was all lumped in this because it is not, I think, in my opinion, safeguarding those teachers that don't want to do this at this time in their career. I will vote against that.
Meredith, were you on that committee as well? Do you have any comments to add?
Yeah, I would just say as somebody who has been in the education business and continues to do that, education changes and licensing changes and requirements change, and that's uncomfortable. And it's not something that after 20 years of teaching we really want to do, but sometimes we need to do what's best for the students in the district as a whole. But I would say this motion itself does not have anything to do with who's keeping their job and who's not keeping their job. This motion pertains to paying for it if people want it. And I think we need to make that clear as we vote. This is, if you vote yes, you're saying, yes, I want to fund people who want to do it. But if you're saying no, it's saying, I don't want to fund people who are volunteering.
I'd have to agree, Meredith. I look at this as being a reimbursement to those teachers that have volunteered to get dual license. And
Well, that as Meredith put it, that's exactly what we did. That's exactly what we discussed.
so that's in the
I
spirit.
understand Stacy's concern, and having been a teacher myself, I mean, it's like nobody likes to be 55 years old and put out on the ice floe. I don't think there's even a suggested threat of that. But I mean, and I don't think we can vote on that unless, of course, we want to have a union contract.
Colin?
Yeah, so I'm glad that people will be compensated for taking on extra responsibilities. That's with all jobs. When you take on more work, a lot of times you're compensated for your work. I don't understand why we couldn't add a grandfather clause. I guess I'm wondering why the grandfather clause was, knowing that was sought, why it was omitted. If anybody on the committee would care to answer that.
Joyce, are you able to speak to that, or Mark?
I think the feeling was that nobody's job is a guarantee, and that so we can't put into a contract that if we need you to move to a position, that you need to be willing to move. Again, despite what other people have said up here, again, I do not believe that these people that choose to do this should not be compensated. don't think, I think the people that we're looking to keep our good teachers. And this could create a situation, I think it already has, we've heard from teachers that have left because they were afraid that they were gonna have to do this and they didn't want to do it. You know, I'm not saying that we should guarantee a job, I just don't think this is a way that we foster maintaining those really great teachers that we have in our district. Who just like to do English or just like to do math. So my understanding is that no job is permanent and that in their contract it says you might have to move and be needed somewhere else. And that's the reason it wasn't done.
Yeah, that's not the issue though that we're voting on, or what the motion addresses. We're only addressing the compensation for people who have voluntarily decided to do this, so.
Well, right.
So you could bring up another motion probably at a different time. Bring it to the committee. It could be then evaluated. But you know, I just want to maintain a clear focus on what the issue is here.
Okay, we have Kathy Willis that wants to speak. Kathy, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Lisa. I guess, guys, I am somewhat disappointed that we're not addressing the grandfather clause because I thought we had done that in the past and had fairly certainly decided that that was the route we wanted to go. I do understand today that we are voting on reimbursement for those employees who decide to go for dual licensure, and I would certainly be in support of that. But I want to strongly encourage the Personnel Committee to continue looking at the grandfather clause for those certain individuals that we've talked about in the past. And as far as Meredith's statement about helping our kids or not helping our kids, I want to saddle Stacy's commentary that I do believe that if we have teachers who are passionate about their subject area from decades at a time, and that's what they want to teach and are passionate about it, that is what's going to relate to our kids and where they'll learn best. Not by those teachers who are being forced into dual licensure and teaching something they aren't really interested in. So I do want us to revisit that. Again, I do understand today it's about reimbursement. So of course I'm behind that. So thanks, guys.
Okay, Colin?
Yeah, so Carrie, I guess, I know you said you wanted to focus on the motion. And my question was directed entirely towards the motion because I wanted to know from the committee, and I heard from Stacy and Meredith, why the grandfather clause was omitted. And as chairman of the Personnel Committee, I'm wondering why you would not answer as to why the grandfather clause was omitted. Why are we in the instance when we're in one speak, we're saying we have a shortage of teachers, let's address that. We have a shortage of substitutes, let's address that. We have, you know, and this is nationwide. We're going to add more stipulations, more hoops, more stress to individuals in our labor line that we don't need to. And we could easily just add a simple thing to this. It's not guaranteeing a job. It's saying, this is the job you were working on. You were doing teaching English. Stick with English, that's fine. Moving forward, those individuals that we bring aboard to be teachers here, they just got to be dual certified. I think it's, you know, making accommodations and compromises to support those that are employed with Manitowoc Public School District. I don't see an issue with that. But I'm wondering why it was just not even wanting to be addressed. That was the reason for the question.
Do you want Stacy or do you want me to answer Colin?
Go ahead first, Carrie.
All right. The reason is because we need to first of all address the teachers who have taken this on. The other issue is one that might be an issue. It's a possibility. It's a hypothetical. It is something that that you and Stacy and Kathy and even myself, you know, feel a concern about, but it isn't something that needs immediate attention at this point. I mean, I don't know, you know, I have no idea that this is going to be a problem, that there are, that Stacy says, well, you know, I talked to one person, or we got that one raging letter from the teacher that went to, voluntarily transferred out of here and went to Denmark and said, oh yeah, you know, there's this thing on the horizon. Well, you know, that's not establishing that a condition exists, that people are being pressured, coerced, you know, threatened in any sort of way. If that becomes evidence, then I think, you know, I'd certainly want to address it. I don't think that's apparent at this point. I mean, I think what you're talking about is like, oh, gee, there might be a problem. The problem right now is that the teachers that have volunteered to do dual license, you know, deserve to be rewarded and compensated. The end right now. So, I mean, I don't want to be like bullying teachers. I don't want to be adding extra pressure. That's not what we're addressing here. If that becomes a real issue, if that's a documented, rather than a rumor, or rather than a hostile comment made by a teacher who's moving to Denmark all on her own voluntarily because, you know, it's a better fit for her. You know, that's not a reason to vote policy.
I just wanted, the last thing I wanted to say was, when this came back to the committee twice, actually the first time it came, we discussed that this was something that was going to be needed district-wide because of our shortfalls of where we had different teachers, and it would be in your best interest. And I remember it being, I think we started off with 16 teachers. And another request that I had was that, you know, why not start with people that are incoming?
Yep.
And have them start to be dual licensed, that we would not take anybody if they were not dual licensed. And again, we just made a hire of somebody that's not dual licensed in the same situation. And when I asked whether or not they were told that they are going to, you know, need to do this because this is the way our district's going, I was told that no, we didn't, or maybe we said it, but it's not in writing. So again, I don't think that there's not a seriousness being taken here that if that's the way we're moving, then why aren't we saying that to the people and having it in writing that that's what we're going to be expected?
Yeah, I remember that comment. And I think you even suggested it should be part of the contract.
Again, I understand that we're housing this under compensation, but I strongly believe that nothing will change and this will move forward as it is because it's already happening. So,
well, we can, you know, we can deal with that.
If I can just give a couple of clarities. The reason this is bringing forward to the board is because we have decreased enrollment in the district. We have less kids. And so less kids means that if we don't make a change, we will have class sizes forced to be smaller than others in the district. It literally is, we don't have enough kids for 8 sections anymore. That legitimately is the reason it's brought forward. So we're trying to be proactive. The second piece I would say is any educator who's hired after September 1st or August 31st is on an LTE 1-year provisional license. We hire all of our new teachers to be dual licensed in the middle school unless we have some unique circumstances like we've got to hire somebody in December or January and they get a 1-year contract. So that's what our practice is. It's not to eliminate anybody, but I would tell you that the practice district-wide for our employees is we ask third grade teachers to teach fifth grade the next year. It's a common, it happens all the time. Joanne might ask someone who's teaching at Jefferson to move to Wilson. It happens all the time. If we grandfather somebody, we are going to eliminate the opportunity to do what we do with 410 other teachers. Not that we have the interest in that. That is not the best interest of the district, right? It would be the best interest of that individual, which I can appreciate. But as the Board of Education, we have to be just understanding of what that would do to the district. Okay.
Alan?
Yeah, so, and I understand trying to do what's best for the district, trying to do, manpower issues and handle what you have going there. And I guess so that I can wrap my head around it a little bit. If somebody's jumping from third to fifth, it's not a licensing issue. It's primarily going to be subject matter, correct?
Yeah, they are licensed, but what the thought process is why we wouldn't do it is because somebody has to teach another subject. Right? What I'm telling you is that happens all the time. At Lincoln High School, I might be a social studies teacher that has 3 sections of world history, a section of geography, and another section of social studies or psychology this year. Next year is going to be different. What we're saying is we need that flexibility. I can't say this is what you're only going to do. And right now, if in fact, as the enrollment goes down and those numbers shrink, if that's all they can do, then we likely will be forced to have 4 teacher teams that will have a smaller class size than the 3 teacher teams because they can only teach in their subject area. I can only teach math, science, social studies, or language arts because I have that's the requirement of the licensure. With a 1-8 licensure, we can move it back. My point of making that is, if I move from 3rd grade to 5th grade, or 1st grade to 2nd grade, I've got math, science, social studies, and language arts that I have to learn a new curriculum. Not just one. So I guess my point is that's commonplace. I would say if I go to our building principals right now, we will be moving 8 to 10 teachers this year from one grade level to the next. Lincoln High School staff will be required to teach. Probably there will be very few who have the exact same course schedule that they have this year. What we're asking for in this case is because the enrollment is shrinking, we need our teachers to be more flexible so that they can teach not 3, not 4, but 2 potential subjects. So that's where that's coming from.
That isn't the issue here. That's not what the motion says.
Okay,
Lisa, could I speak, please?
of course you can.
Okay, Mark, while I agree with almost everything that you have to say, the one difference that I see is that when teachers go into elementary education, they expect those grade changes from time to time. That is commonplace. And so I don't think that would upset the majority of our teachers. So they do expect that at some point. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking this is affecting, for the most part, again, our middle school teachers. Is that true? Definitely middle school and high school, but is it mostly middle school? And this is not new. This came up last year. So it's not a brand new thing that happened because we had one teacher leave. This has been on the plate for a while now. Carrie.
It's only middle school.
It's only
It
middle
is middle
school.
school. Okay. All right. Thanks.
It's only 7th and 8th grade.
7th and 8th grade.
And so again, is part of this though, do we need to look at it piggybacked with the whole 4-person team, 2-house team, or 2-person house kind of thing? I mean, I understand we need flexibility. There's no doubt in that, but not every single person may have to be part of that, I think is part of what we're getting at. Some of these people have devoted a lot of time here and I think are worth working with to make sure they don't have to move into a different subject matter they're not passionate about. So anyway, I'm totally for voting about reimbursing people. I know we need to get back to it. I just really want to see this addressed more in the future with the grandfather clause type thing.
Okay, so there is no motion required from the committee. So all we will do is vote to approve.
Okay, the motion is, to approve the district providing,
To approve or not approve?
to,
Go ahead, Gary.
to approve the district providing the applicable financial resources to those middle school core teachers who voluntarily choose to obtain a second license.
Can I say one more thing? Before I vote?
Sure.
So, right now, I'm not in favor of this motion. The reason I'm not in favor of this motion is because it doesn't have the grandfather clause. That being said, I do think that there should be what this motion entails. I would simply ask, I guess, because I have, based on the responses and the discussion, I'm guessing that this votes, or assuming that this vote is going to go a different way than what I only just ask though that, Carrie, if you could possibly bring this up in personnel to address the concern that I have in the grandfather clause not being included. Because I
Sure,
would like to see-
I'd bring it up, but I would bring it up, you know, with a condition that if this becomes mandatory rather than voluntary, that we should then discuss and consider a way of providing exemptions.
I'm okay with exemptions being,
Yeah,
And likewise, actually, knowing a firm number after we approve or disapprove.
right.
is fine.
I mean, I'm not opposed to, like, you know, being decent to teachers, for God's sake, you know? But this, you know, but since it's not mandatory at this point. But I know Stacy's gonna say, well, there's gonna be more subtle pressures and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You know, so that's the nature of life, I guess. That's the nature of work in many ways. But if it becomes mandatory, for sure, we may want to really consider some exemptions to that mandatory requirement.
Again, I'd like to speak.
Go ahead.
Kind of, again, going alongside of what Carrie has to say here. I think at this point in time, though, it is really important that we vote on the matter at hand and maybe leave the grandfather clause exception to the rule type thing for another motion. We do want to get this rolling, guys. We want the volunteers to come forward if they want to do this, and we want them to know that they will be reimbursed. So I see it as a win for both sides here. The people who don't want to go through the dual licensure at this time, it provides those people who want to and are willing to do that to get the ball rolling. And I think we don't want to hesitate too long with this. Otherwise people may kind of drop off or decide not to. So, I mean, I'm in support of voting for this right now. I think we got to get it moving.
Okay, so let's take a vote. All those in favor of this motion, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, it carries. The next item is other business, and we had 2 board members that attended the WASB State Education Convention. So do either one of you, Kathy or Carrie, want to make any comments about going down there?
Well, I would. I had some reservations about spending 3 days away from stuff I really shouldn't be working on. Once I arrived and took in some of the sessions, I was really glad that I made the decision to go. Not all the sessions were great, but some of them were absolutely very, very informative. I learned a fair amount that I didn't know, and I must admit, I'm still considered myself a fairly new board member, and this is a pretty complicated business. But there were some things that were downright inspirational. I mean, there was a great interview with with the manager of the Brewers, which had all sorts of implications for education. But I think there was some real learning that took place, at least for me, and I'm assuming for other people. And I thought it was tremendously worthwhile. And it wasn't necessarily time off.
Thanks, Carrie. Kathy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I really should. As a delegate, I did vote the way our group, our board decided we should vote on, and all the proposals though did pass. I have specific numbers written down if anyone wants more information with that. This WASB, the state probably does too. It was interesting to be part of the voting process. However, I will say, like Carrie, the opportunity to hear people discuss things was really great. And I kind of was bummed afterwards that I had to be a delegate because I missed out on more opportunities to hear sessions because it was really valuable. So I think, I'd love to encourage all of our other board members to go if you can in the future. I did get some extra books too, so you can see the kinds of things that are available. And I'm really thankful. I think WASB put on a great event and I learned a lot also.
Okay, thank you very much, Kathy. Okay, under other business is Ad Hoc Student Behavior Advisory Committee. Mark, is there
Oh boy, sweet. Yeah, you get to hear me talk again, guys. So our ad hoc committee started on January 27th. It was a group of 6 individuals, and actually Carrie came too as a guest of that committee. And so we started out basically getting to know one another, to talk about what we felt as though were some of the behavior issues that we have. And basically it was, kind of an introductory session. At that time, I think one of the greatest things that happened is that we had decided that in order to make any kind of impact, if we wanted to help the district, was to meet on a weekly basis rather than monthly or bi-weekly. Because just as our superintendent has said, this behavior is a crisis. And it's not only a crisis here, but it's a crisis everywhere. So we want to be able to address that as quickly as we can and as thoroughly. So our second meeting went super well. We had a lot of discussion. We talked about how important consistency will be and that we'd like to see a cohesive plan and just gathering of ideas and more information. So we look forward to doing more of that. And also this Thursday, we will be adding 2 new community members. And so we're very excited. The people who are sitting on it right now are Dave and myself. And the rest are basically people who are parents and former teachers and just concerned community members. So we will be up to, I think, 8 people on our committee. And we're really excited to move forward. We seem to be gelling really well. And I don't know, we'll see how it goes and be able to hopefully bring some really good, solid stuff forward to Mark and his team and to the board.
Kathy, I have a question. Were you
Yes.
able to find a mental health care professional to be on?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, we actually have not yet, but that is our plan. Thanks for mentioning that, is to bring in at least 1 mental health professional. Dave is actually going to be looking into that more because he has a lot of contacts. And if he doesn't, I have someone in mind also. So we have all decided that it's definitely imperative that we bring someone in with that point of view.
Okay, and I'd also suggest that anybody willing to volunteer here, please step forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa.
Jump on that board, or I'll jump on that committee.
Okay, and we're also looking for a mental health care professional.
Sure.
Anyone else?
I think it's insulting that I wasn't asked to begin with and you're looking for one.
That was offered to everybody during the last.
Sure it was.
Kevin, I have a quick question.
Okay.
You had mentioned, so there was some input tonight that alluded to the fact that there weren't any parents. Can you speak to, if you know, the people who are serving on that committee, who are parents, do they, first of all, have kids in our district? And if so, can you speak to what level their kids may be at? Like, is there somebody who maybe has somebody at Lincoln, somebody in the middle schools?
Yeah, actually, we have a great parent right now who has kids within our district. All of the people I think have had children in our district. Most of the people that we have are retired teachers, so they have some really great perspectives on things. But one of our parents, she has students at the middle school level and at the elementary school level. So I think that'll be, well, she's been super, super helpful. So, you know, if we can get another parent or two, you know, we don't want to get too large because then you have breakdowns, but having that parent input is really great, and having another parent or two would be fantastic. So we do have that right now.
Thank you.
Colin?
Yeah, so I was kind of curious as to why I didn't, why I didn't get any input. Harry was a guest at this meeting, so it wasn't just the ad hoc committee members. I'm looking in my email right now. I don't see any invite to this meeting. I didn't even see any notification of this meeting. When did this notification take place? Because I don't have anything.
It was discussed at the board meeting on January 25th, when Dave Nichols had said, I am forming an ad hoc committee. I'm looking for volunteers.
Sure.
Kathy Willis, am I correct, Kathy? Do you remember when Dave had mentioned that and you immediately jumped in and said, I'm in, I want to.
Absolutely. And Dave approached me afterward and said he was really glad that I volunteered. So, because I've been passionate about the behavior thing since day one. So, yeah, it was part of our board meeting. I'm sure you guys can all go back and look at it. So everybody who wanted to be on it could have volunteered at the time. No one was trying to be exclusionary.
And a date was picked and set that night and let everyone know about it?
Not that night, no. At that point in time, I was the only one who volunteered on the board. And so Dave had sent out an email to the people who had approached him about being on it, and myself, and then we picked a date and time out of the several that he offered. And then we actually were meeting on Thursday evenings, and then we decided as a group that Thursday afternoons worked for everyone who was part of it, and that we would do it on a weekly basis. That's how it took place.
So, and if it was asked of us to be on this committee, and I missed the ask, then that's on me, and I'll accept that. What I don't see though is the fact that, you know, if this was my reason or this is my point though, I don't see any board book notification. I don't see any, hey, we're having this meeting on such and such day and such time. If you want to jump in, here's the link. That occurs for the COVID. So the precedence kind of was set for that. I'm wondering why I didn't get notifications so I could even just view it.
There was, I heard it on the radio.
It's an ad hoc
So,
committee,
yes,
and I
it's
do
an
send
ad hoc
out
committee,
I do send out a copy of the agenda.
Yeah,
It's
And
not,
Dave-
If I just say, it's not a meeting of the
Right.
Board of Education.
right.
So we do send out, only because there are multiple board members, we'll send out a notice, much like if we were attending graduation, for example. But it is not, again, there's probably some uniquenesses there. It's not a meeting of the Board of Education. It's an advisory group, right? So that group has no authority. So we can't treat it like a board meeting. It's not like a board committee. If this board chose, I'm not saying, I'm not exactly sure how to go about doing that, but
Certainly not.
the board could say, we want to have an additional board committee that, you know, at the beginning of the year, there's all those committees that we are assigned. That's the board committees. This is an ad hoc committee, which is an advisory committee. Now, we've had a couple of those moving forward, and that's how we've treated it. I do think that as much as I want the board to all do that, if we have 5 board members attending an ad hoc committee, it probably is not an ad hoc, right? It becomes now a board meeting. So I think I would probably want to talk to the WASB to just get their opinions on what happens if we have a board of education ad hoc committee with the majority of the board attending the meeting. That makes sense, because
there's 2 right now.
right. So that
So you could have another one.
well, you may be able to have all 5. I just don't want to put the board in a position where we created an ad hoc committee And then we're actually not an ad hoc committee, we're actually a meeting of the Board of Education, we're not posting it as such. So,
So
but I'm not saying, I'm not in charge of the committee at all, that's,
Also, guys, I'd like to add to that, certainly if you have anything you want to be known, and because I am part of it and I took a lead spot in it this past week, I mean, I'd love to hear what you have to say and to bring it forward. There's no doubt about that. So again, we're not trying to be, keep anyone from anything. More opinions are better. The idea of it being ad hoc too is that it's not a board committee. It's more of a committee of our community. So, and it's great because we do have, a parent and former teachers and a board representative. So, I just want to encourage you, if you have anything to say about it or if you want to be invited to listen in and just give opinions, again, we're not voting on stuff. We don't have authority, but we are hoping to come up with some ideas and plans that we can bring forward to the MPSD that maybe will help, help some of our crises with the whole behavior situation. So.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. All right, future meetings. Have we got any future meetings? Curriculum, is that? Okay. Chris, nothing? Personnel?
I don't know. Joyce, what do you think? Not right now, yeah.
Okay, so,
The ad hoc committee will be meeting on Thursday, the 10th at 1:00.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so then I will need a first and second motion to adjourn.
Are we gonna set the next board meeting?
is that unless you, yeah. And that 2 weeks from today, at noon.
February 25th.
February 25th? Yep.
No, 22nd.
February 22nd, noon at the board office. Okay,
Okay.
all right, so then I'll
I
need
move
a
we adjourn.
second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, Lisa, for
Ask for second.
dealing with us. Thank you, Lisa, for dealing with a difficult situation really well. So.
Set that back for the year on that.